Hi, everybody. Today I wanted to talk about dissociation in terms of waking up. It's a little hard to put this into words and to actually even know how to put a title on it, but it goes back to some of the things I've been talking about in the previous weeks, things like woke, and where we talked about awareness, expansion of awareness, and being aware. So maybe if you've listened to some of those other recordings, this might fit in with some of what you've already heard. So imagine a pre-verbal child who feels an emotion, something like sadness. They don't have words to describe that sadness. All they are is being sad. So they sit in that feeling of sadness and they just be it. They be sad. But as we start to learn words, right, this child might be told at some point, oh, you're sad, and then they'll start associating that word sad with the feeling that they're experiencing. And then they will start using their mind. They'll start saying things to themselves like, I'm sad. And as we do that, we start to dissociate from the actual feeling that we're feeling inside. And we're more in the mind. We're thinking, oh, I'm sad, but we're not actually feeling that feeling of being sad. We're suppressing that feeling and we're just in the mind. Now, that doesn't mean that feeling is not still there. It is still there. We're just not seeing it because we're in the mind and we're talking about it, but we're not sitting in it and we're not feeling it. So as we go through life and we start using words more and more, we start using our mind more and more, we start dissociating or forgetting that the feelings are still there. The same thing happens with images. To begin with, we will learn a word, for example, the word girl, and we're seeing normally a girl. We see it in a picture form, right? If we're learning words, we'll often see those in picture forms first, and then we'll associate the words, the letters, GIRL, with the picture of the girl. So we're seeing the image, we're associating it with a word, and then over time we start to just use the words. We no longer see the images. And even in our minds, we're no longer seeing those images. We're just using the words. So we're in some sense dissociating from the image as well. So then you get to the point maybe that you start to wake up and you start to do some of this inner work, this release work, where the subconscious mind is starting to open up. And then this process reverses. It's not always the nicest thing. It's not always the best thing. It doesn't feel that great, because now when someone says to me, I'm having a shower, I see them having a shower in my mind and I don't always want to do that. But the images start coming back to life. So as we release the memories or the emotions that we've stored around words and around memories, those images start to come back to life. But not only those images start coming back to life, the memories, the emotions, the tension that we have stored along with those words also come back, and they're coming back for us to notice and to let go of, to release the energy around them, which then helps us wake up at a deeper and deeper level, or become aware at a deeper and a deeper level. So that's when it becomes much more obvious that things like systemic racism, systemic sexism happen. It's because of this process. We start to dissociate from that word, that images, the feelings of what a girl is, and then we start just using the word. So we'll call a 50, 60-year-old woman a girl. We'll say girls' night out. We'll use that word over and over again, not really realizing that subconsciously in our mind, so when most of us are not aware of this, but subconsciously inside of us, we are seeing a picture of a girl, a vulnerable girl who's not able to look after herself. She's young, right? She's incapable of looking after herself. And we are now associating it with a grown woman. But because we're really seeing in our minds, subconscious minds, we're seeing a vulnerable girl, then there comes the systemic sexism, right? We're not treating women the way we should be because we're seeing them as vulnerable, incapable girls. So as you do this inner work and reverse that programming that we've had, you start to see the images of the girl, you start to feel the feelings that have been suppressed by being in the mind and by thinking with words. And it just reverses that whole system. And you start to become aware at a deeper and deeper level. Because we have dissociated the feelings and the images of those words, we can actually use words to access the images and the feelings in a way that is not as intense as directly accessing those images and those feelings. So if someone has some deep shame that they do not want to feel because it is so intense and they feel like it's going to annihilate them, those words that I just used then, I could tap on those words using EFT. I could tap using the words, that shame is so deep, I feel like it's going to annihilate me. If I feel it, I don't want to feel it. I don't want to sit in that shame. Those words themselves that I'm tapping on are actually accessing the outer layers of that shame inside of me. I may not be aware of it, and that's okay. But it's releasing the outer layers of the onion of shame that is sitting inside of me. And it's releasing that tension slowly, which is good because I don't want to get right into that shame. Eventually, once I've released the tension around the shame, so I've released that feeling of not wanting to access the shame because it's going to annihilate me, once I've released that tension, I can maybe once again sit in that feeling of shame. I can be the shame like I was as a little child before I learned what that word meant and started putting it in my mind, right? I reversed that process. Then I can actually just sit in that feeling of shame and just allow it to be felt just like I would as a pre-verbal infant. I would just sit in it and allow it to just pass through me. So we can use that dissociation to help us get back into our innermost feelings and release that tension that's stored in there. So I hope you can understand why that's a little tricky to put into words. You may not understand it fully, and that's okay, but hopefully that sowed a seed so you can start to be aware of the words you're using and maybe try and remember, how did you learn that word? Well, what are the images that come to mind with that word? And maybe start opening yourself up that way, or start using a technique like EFT and tapping on those words and what you remember and see what comes up. Because it's amazing what we store inside our bodies. We store everything inside of our bodies in our subconscious mind. It's all there. And if we can access it, then we can wake up. Thanks, everybody. Feel free to join me any week. I'm happy to answer any questions if you want to come on and join me live at 11 a.m. California time. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.